Hi Bobcats, this is Miss Lee, and we are going to start a series of videos on fractions, decimals, and percent conversions, aka FDP conversions. We've already learned about the benchmark FDPs, the ones that you really should have memorized. They're the most common ones that you're going to use throughout your life. And now we're going to learn how to convert those that are not so common. We're going to be able to take any fraction and turn it into a decimal and in a percent. We're going to take any decimal and write that as equivalent fractions in percent and so on. And the first that we're going to work with are fractions and percents. So make sure that you have your notes. If you do not have your notes packet with you, then get some paper. Take notes on paper, work the examples on paper. Pause the video whenever necessary so that you can stay caught up in your note taking. Okay, to change a fraction to a percent, you want to write an equivalent fraction that has a denominator out of 100. All right, so remember, percent, always out of 100. Anytime you see the word percent, you should think out of 100. Okay, so take a look at our first fraction, 9/20. Some students want to say the percent is 9%. That's because they don't want to do any work, right? It's not 9% because it does not say 9 out of 100. It says 9 out of 20. We need this denominator to be 100. So we're going to find an equivalent fraction. How can we change this 20 into 100? What number can we multiply by? We can multiply by 5. 9 times 5 gives us 100, and we learned to find equivalent fractions, you have to multiply the numerator by the same. 9 times 5 is 45. Now we have 45 hundredths. This is a number that is out of 100, so that is your percent, 45%. Pretty easy, right? Just a side note, this number that we're multiplying by is called a scale factor, and it's a term that we're going to start using in 6th grade. When you scale something, you're either increasing the size or you're decreasing it. So we're going to call this number, this multiplier, scale factor. We multiplied 20 by a scale factor of 5 to get 100. We multiplied 9 by a scale factor of 5 to get 45. Next example, 4/5. Again, it's not 4%, it's not 45%. This denominator is not 100, but we can multiply it by a scale factor of 20 to get 100. Use the same scale factor with the numerator. 4 times 20 is 80. Now that we have a number out of 100, that number is our percent, 80%. Pretty easy, right? Let's take a look at the next example. Can we change this 35 into 100? Is there a whole number that we can multiply 35 by that will give us exactly 100? No, there's not. When that happens, you have to look at the fraction and you have to simplify it. Now, to simplify a fraction means you find a common factor in both the numerator and the denominator, and you divide by that factor to make a smaller fraction. Okay? I always look at the smallest number, 21, and I ask myself, is 21 a factor of the 35? And it's not. So I have to think of other factors of 21. And I know that there's factors of 7 times 3. 3 is not a factor of 35, but 7 is. So I can use that common factor of 7 and divide both by 7. 21 divided by 7 will give me 3. 35 divided by 7 will give me 5. Now I have a simplified fraction that has 5 as the denominator, and I know I can change that 5 into 100 by multiplying by a scale factor of 20. We just did it, right? And so 3 times 20 will give us 60. Now that we have a number out of 100, 60 out of 100, that 60 becomes our percent. 12/48. Again, we're going to have to simplify. There's no whole number to multiply 48 by to get 100. So I look at my smaller number 12. Is 12 a factor of 48? It is. So I can divide both by 12. 12 divided by 12 gives me 1. 48 divided by 12 gives me 4. 1/4. I know what that is because that's a benchmark. When I see 4 as my denominator, I think of quarters, right? And this is 1/4, which is worth 25 cents. 25 out of 100, there's my percent, 25%. Now, if you forgot about your benchmarks and you didn't recognize it right away, then you'd have to come up with your scale factor. And you should note that you would have to multiply by 25. And you still get the same, 25 hundredths, which is 25%. Okay, what's different about our last example here? It's a mixed number, right? It has a whole number and a fraction. I'm going to show you two ways to do this. The first way is to leave the whole number alone. We're going to leave it as 2 wholes. Okay? And we're just going to focus on the fraction. We want to turn this 50 into 100, so our scale factor is going to be 2. Do the same thing to the numerator. 17 times 2 is 34. So now we have 34 out of 100. We know that's going to be 34%, but we have to go back and look at this 2 whole. What percent is 1 whole? It's 100%. So 2 wholes would be 200%. So we add the 200% to the 34, and we get 234%. So if 1 whole equals 100%, 2 wholes equal 200%. Add the 200 plus the 34, and you get the 234. That's one way of doing it. I'm going to change my color and show you another way. Another way is to change this into an improper fraction. Sometimes you're going to have an improper fraction and you're going to need to change it to a percent. Instead of trying to change it into a mixed number first, you could leave it improper. Okay, so I know for my improper fraction, I have to multiply the denominator times the whole number and then add the numerator. So 50 times 2 is 100, plus 17 gives me 117, and the denominator stays the same. So I still need to change the 50 to 100, so I multiply it by 2 to get 100, but this time when I multiply 117 times 2, I get 234. 234 out of 100, I can write that as my percent. So we still got the same answer, didn't we? All right, so now I have 4 examples for you to try. I would like for you to pause the video, change these fractions to percents, look at the examples we've done if you need help. Once you have your answers, come back and check to see how you did. Okay, here are the answers. Pause the video, check your answers. If you got an answer wrong, look at the work that is shown and look at your work and see if you can find your error. And when you're ready, move on to learn how to change a percent to a fraction. Okay, to change a percent to a fraction, we make a fraction by writing the percent over 100, and then simplify the fraction if needed. Well, that makes sense because we know percent is out of 100. So 30%, turn it into a fraction by putting it over 100. Give it a denominator of 100 and simplify. Both numerator and denominator end in a 0, so I can divide them both by 10. Or there's a little shortcut trick. When you see that they both end in a 0, you can cross them off, and it gives you your simplified fraction of 3/10. 65%, percent is out of 100, so that's our denominator. I know that I can divide both by 5, because we have to simplify. 65 divided by 5 is going to be 13. 100 divided by 5 is 20. Since 13 is prime, 13/20 is our simplified answer. Okay, 125%. We can do this 2 different ways. We can go ahead and put it over 100, simplify. I actually recognize that 25 is a common factor. So 125 divided by 5 is going to give me, 125 divided by 25 is going to give me 5, and 100 divided by 25 is 4. So I have the improper fraction of 5/4. So that's one way. The other way is you can take this 125%, let me change the color here, and you can say, okay, 125%. I can take away 100%, that's 1 whole. And that leaves me with 25%. And 25% I know is 1/4. 1 and 1/4. These are both equivalent. They're the same amount. One is just written as improper, and the other is written as a mixed number. 104%. You can do this the same way. I'm actually going to go ahead and just leave it improper. Put it over 100 and simplify. I'm going to divide both by 2 which I'm going to run out of room here, but I'm going to get 52 over 50, divide by 2 again, and it's going to give me 26 over 25, and that is as simplified as you can get. If you wanted to go ahead and do it like this and put it as a mixed number, you could do that as well. You would get, if you take out 100%, 100% equals the 1 whole, and then that leaves you 4 out of 100. Divide both by 4, and it gives you 1/25. So it would be 1 and 1/25 as a mixed number. So these are the same. Okay, 4 examples for you. Do the same thing. Pause, turn these percents into fractions, simplify your fractions, come back and check your work, and take a look at that one. This one is a challenge. Let's see how you do on it. Okay, go ahead and check your answers. If you got an answer wrong, look at the work done to see if you can find your mistake. And I do want to go ahead before we go and talk about this last one. When you write this percent as a fraction over 100, you've got a decimal inside of a fraction, which is kind of weird. So let's go ahead and turn this into a whole number. To turn this into a whole number, we have to move the decimal point 1 place to the right to turn it into 200, it's not very good too, to turn it into 232. We increased the number's place value by 1. So we have to do the same thing to the denominator. So instead of 100, we increase it by 1 place value, it becomes 1,000. So we have 232 thousandths, and then you just simplify. I'm going to divide by 2, and it's going to give me 116 over 500. I'm going to divide by 2 again. So I divided by 2 over here. I'm running out of room. And it's going to give me 58 over 250. Divide by 2 again. It's going to give me 29 over 125. So there is the simplified answer. All right. Nice job, guys.